I never thought my life would turn into one of those late-night Netflix docuseries where the husband walks in on the wife and her so-called personal trainer. But apparently the universe decided my marriage needed an audience laugh track. It started on a Tuesday, which is ironic because Tuesdays are supposed to be boring, harmless, middle-of-the-week filler days, not the stage for betrayal, infidelity, and the kind of toxic love plot twists that make reality TV producers salivate. I wasn't even supposed to be home. I had wrapped up work early because my boss, who probably hates his own family more than anyone I've ever met, told us all to go reconnect with our loved ones. Well, mission accomplished. I reconnected all right, just not the way Hallmark Channel envisioned. The moment I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Call it instinct. Call it the sixth sense of a man who subconsciously realizes his family unit is about to implode, but the air was thick, heavy, charged, like static right before a thunderstorm. And then there was the sound, a muffled thumping, rhythmic, too fast to be the washing machine, too slow to be CrossFit. My heart went straight into panic mode, but my brain, God bless it, tried to rationalize. Maybe she dropped something. Maybe she was working out. After all, she had been obsessed with fitness ever since that shiny new gym trainer walked into her life like some Greek demigod with protein powder in his veins. But my gut knew better. I pushed open the bedroom door, and there it was, the kind of cinematic betrayal you don't forget. My wife, half-dressed, tangled in sheets with Mr. Biceps himself, the personal trainer who had probably promised her a lifetime supply of crunches and kale smoothies. The scene was so absurd that for a split second I thought I had stumbled onto the wrong set, like some B-grade adult parody of my own life. And the best part? She had the audacity, the gall, the Olympic-level nerve to look me in the eye and say, "It's not what it looks like." Oh, really? So what is it exactly? A new stretching exercise for advanced yoga families? A sacred ancient ritual where betrayal is just part of the warm-up? If this was not what it looks like, then I must have been hallucinating like some government test subject in a conspiracy theory lab. I stood frozen, not because I didn't know what to do, but because my mind was already exploding with questions that sounded less like marital concerns and more like courtroom cross-examinations. How long has this been going on? Did he spot you while I was working double shifts for our family? Was this his version of helping with form? And the biggest question, how could the one person I trusted the most turn into the knife in my back? It wasn't just the cheating that killed me. It was the lies, the gaslighting. The betrayal wasn't in the act, it was in her face, desperately trying to rewrite the script before I could process the reality. She went on, fumbling excuses like a politician caught on camera. I was stressed. He was helping me relax. You don't understand. We were just bonding. Bonding? I didn't realize family bonding now required a gym membership and betrayal as the initiation fee. And the trainer, poor idiot, tried to sneak out of the room with his shirt half on, half off, like a criminal caught by mall security. He didn't even defend himself. He knew. He was the side character in my personal Greek tragedy, and side characters don't get happy endings. He muttered some nonsense about professional boundaries and ran off like the coward he was, leaving me staring at the ruins of my marriage with my wife still spinning lies that could make CIA disinformation officers proud. And here's the thing, the anger didn't come right away. First came the disbelief, then the comedy of it all. I actually laughed, out loud. Because in that moment, I realized my life had gone from suburban family sitcom to twisted parody thriller, and all I needed was dramatic background music to complete the scene. But underneath that laughter was something darker, colder, an understanding that this betrayal, this infidelity, was more than just a mistake. It was a calculated gamble, a toxic love affair dressed up as exercise, and I was the fool who had financed it all. That was the first spark of revenge inside me. Not loud, not explosive, but quiet, simmering, Like a fuse lit on a stick of dynamite you forget is burning until it blows the house apart. She had no idea that by lying to my face, she was planting the seed for her world to collapse. She thought she could cheat, manipulate, spin the story, and still keep her family safe. But the joke was on her, because I wasn't just the betrayed husband anymore. I was the man who had just discovered how satisfying it is to play along before you deliver the final blow. I don't remember sitting down, but somehow I'm on the edge of the bed like a juror who accidentally wandered into deliberations 10 minutes too early. And she's already cross-examining me with therapy words she found on TikTok. "I felt unseen," she says, still clutching a sheet like it's a lawyer's exhibit and not the last prop in a community theater version of our marriage. "You've been distant. Work, bills, your tone." My tone? My tone was fine right up until the cameo from Mr. Sixpack and the betrayal that turned our home into a discount soap opera. She keeps going, a filibuster of modern self-care talk. Boundaries, needs, growth, energy, alignment. It sounds less like a confession and more like a sponsored post for Infidelity. I can practically hear a promo code. Use cheating at checkout for 10% off your next affair. Meanwhile, the gym trainer's Apple Watch is still pinging from somewhere in the hallway, the heart rate graph probably spelling my name in cursive. She says it wasn't cheating, it was a trauma response. To what? Trader Joe's was out of the good hummus? Our family calendar didn't sync? Mercury went retrograde and her pants fell off? She's mixing wellness with betrayal, like a green smoothie that tastes virtuous and is, in reality, pure sugar. And I'm supposed to sip and nod while my life turns into a parody of Toxic Love meets Yoga for Beginners. I let her talk. I let her stack sandbags of excuses against a tidal wave she doesn't see coming. She says the trainer is a friend, that he cares about my growth. Growth? The only growth I'm seeing is his personal best in moral flexibility. She says it happened because I checked out, because the spark faded, because family routines swallowed romance. As if marriage were a Peloton leaderboard, and she simply needed a new instructor to shout, "Push!" I keep my face calm, my voice steady, like I'm testifying to Congress about something I definitely orchestrated, but learned to pronounce innocently. Inside, though, I'm cataloging everything, phrases, micro-flinches, the choreography of lies. The light catches on her ring, and I think about the vows, about the church where we promised a forever that wasn't supposed to have a 30-day cancellation policy. I smell her perfume on the pillow, floral, the same bottle I gave her for our anniversary, and my brain does that American thing where it overlays nostalgia on disaster. Backyard barbecues, road trips, Costco runs where we felt like a team pushing a cart big enough to smuggle a small horse. Sunday morning pancakes with music too loud, and our neighbors judging us for being happy. I want to tell her that's what betrayal steals. It doesn't just take your present. It reaches backward like a thief with a time machine and robs your memories, stamps counterfeit, on moments that used to sing. She switches tactics, as if the algorithm suggested a new script. Now it's contrition, tears, shaking hands, a performance that would crush at regional theater. She says it was a mistake, one time, a lapse. But her eyes flick sideways, tiny, guilty, and my internal prosecutor notes the tell. One time comes with choreography and confidence. That looked like practice. I ask how long. She says I'm being cruel. I ask if he knows the names of our nephews, our dog's birthday, the exact way you talk to your sister when she's spiraling and you don't want to wake old ghosts. She says, I weaponize intimacy. That one almost makes me laugh. Imagine being accused of weaponizing intimacy by the person who detonated a bomb in our bed. Then she says a line so classic it should be stitched on a throw pillow. We were on a break. We were not. The only break was her accountability snapping in half like a plastic fork at a company picnic. America loves a comeback story. so she tries one. She suggests therapy, couples work, rebuilding. And for a second I feel the ache of the old dream. The house, the dog, the family photos that look like magazine spreads when you squint. I feel the gravity of staying. But gravity is just a force. It doesn't get a vote. The part of me that still believes in vows is arguing with the part of me that just watched infidelity fold itself into our sheets like a creased hotel brochure. I say I need air. She nods like that's the first wise thing I've said all day and follows me to the kitchen where the refrigerator hums like a witness trying not to be noticed. On the island, her phone is face down in that guilty way phones get when they know they contain the whole plot. I'm not a snooper by habit, but today I am a historian, a curator, a museum of receipts. She steps into the laundry room to cry at a new angle, and the screen lights with a preview that reads like a gym brochure from hell. Great session today. Same time Friday? Followed by a peach and a sweat drop, because apparently literacy died in America years ago. I don't open it. Not yet. Revenge, when it's pure, is patient. I touch the case, feel the faint warmth, and it occurs to me that the cloud already knows everything: texts, photos. Live photos, those sneaky little 3-second ghosts that record ambient sound before and after the shutter. The ones people forget are mini surveillance devices. Her Apple Watch logs heart rate spikes. The trainer's location pings at our address like a homing pigeon of bad decisions. This is not a whodunit, it's a how loud do you want the speakers. I rinse a cup because the choreography of normal life keeps your hands busy while your soul negotiates its exit. She returns with blotchy cheeks and the posture of someone who wants a plea deal. I love you, she says, and I believe that she believes it, which is somehow worse. Love without loyalty is just sentiment with good lighting. Here is where the conspiracy part of my brain revs like a NASCAR engine. Suddenly I see patterns. The extended leg days that never resulted in sore legs. The new lingerie she claimed was for confidence. The essential oils party that smelled suspiciously like a cover story. The HOA meetings that went late but never resulted in new mulch. The trainer, his perfect teeth, his discount tattoos, his Instagram captioned with grind-set wisdom and the grammar of a parking ticket. I picture the gym, a temple of iron where the altar call is one more rep, where people replace their crises with endorphins and call it clarity. Did they plot it between sets? Did he pitch her on macro alignment and recovery like Betrayal is just another supplement? In my head, I rename the whole operation, not functional fitness, but functional infidelity, scalable, repeatable, timed for best results when the husband is on quarterly close. She reaches for me and I don't move. My stillness panics her more than shouting would. Americans are trained to fear silence. It means the edit is coming, the cut to confession, the narration that changes everything. She starts promising, deleting numbers, quitting the gym, switching churches, anything to reset the scoreboard. I know this game. It's not remorse. It's crisis management. Public relations for a private war. She wants to keep the house, the optics, the family Christmas card that says warmest wishes while the edges are freezing. And I think about our family, about kids we were planning, the names we tried on like clothes in a bright dressing room, the future she just pawned for a dopamine hit. Betrayal is a flood. It finds every room. So I do the most American thing I can think of. I smile like I'm negotiating a car lease. I tell her I hear her. I tell her we'll work on it. I tell her we can try therapy, boundaries, accountability, all the greatest hits. She exhales, relieved, misreading mercy for surrender. She hugs me too long, and I hold just enough to sell the illusion. Because here's the secret she doesn't know yet. Forgiveness and revenge can wear the same outfit on the way to different parties. I'm not shouting because noise would tip my hand. I'm not leaving tonight because patience is leverage. What looks like soft acceptance is, in fact, staging. I am setting my lights, placing my marks, checking my sound. The show she signed us up for without my consent is about to get a rewrite. Call it toxic love's audit. Call it the slow roll. Call it a husband learning how to make truth loud. Whatever you call it, it starts with quiet, and it ends with every lie she told playing on speakers she cannot turn off. You'd think the moment of betrayal would be the climax, but no. America doesn't end its movies at the first explosion. We like a 3-act structure, popcorn in hand, and I'm apparently living through the extended director's cut. Days pass, but time feels edited by a drunk intern. Morning coffee tastes like burnt lies. The dog looks at me with sympathy, usually reserved for veterans of foreign wars, and my wife keeps performing domesticity like she's auditioning for The Bachelor redemption arc. She cooks elaborate dinners, posts photos of us smiling like betrayal is just a filter you slap on Instagram, and touches my arm like she's rebooting intimacy. If Hollywood has taught me anything, it's that when people get too eager to prove their innocence, the credits haven't rolled. The sequel is already in production. Here's what gnawed at me: the silence. Not just hers, but mine. I'd become an actor in my own life, playing the role of forgiving husband while my internal monologue was a Quentin Tarantino voiceover about revenge and betrayal and family ties severed with a chainsaw. At work, spreadsheets blurred into manifestos. At the grocery store, I eyed cucumbers like blunt instruments of cosmic justice. My rage wasn't loud. It was refining itself into strategy, which is scarier. Loud rage burns fast. Silent rage builds empires. Ask any American CEO who smiled while cutting pensions. One night she slipped into bed beside me, smelling like lavender and apologies, and for a wild second I wanted to collapse into the simplicity of forgiveness. But then her phone buzzed under the pillow and my chest went cold. I didn't check it. Didn't have to. Infidelity has a ringtone all its own, and it sounds like your life being downgraded to a parody. I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, each spin a countdown to the moment I'd stop being the victim and start being the author of this toxic love story. You ever notice how betrayal makes you hallucinate patterns? I began seeing conspiracies everywhere, like infidelity had activated the part of my brain reserved for people who connect JFK to Bigfoot. The gym membership was a shell corporation for lust. The protein shakes in the fridge weren't just overpriced powder. They were receipts, artifacts, relics of her betrayal cult. Every time she said self-care, I heard cover-up. Every yoga mat was a crime scene. It wasn't paranoia if the affair was real. It was research. The flashbacks got me worst. She'd kiss me goodnight, and my brain would splice in B-roll footage of her trainer's hand on her back. She'd talk about family trips, and I'd hear the word family dripping with sarcasm, like a poisoned apple handed to a fairy tale fool. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it colonizes your imagination. You can't even butter toast without remembering how the world burned. So I started documenting, journals, screenshots, quiet reconnaissance like a dad who joined the CIA after PTA. The American dream had collapsed, but the American instinct for receipts, strong as ever. Then came the breaking point. It wasn't cinematic. It wasn't me kicking over a chair or smashing plates like we were in a telenovela. It was smaller, pettier, but sharper. We were sitting at dinner, her laughing too hard at some reality show about toxic love. And I suddenly felt like a character trapped inside a parody of my own family sitcom. She reached across the table, touched my hand, and said, "See, we're doing better." That's when I snapped, not outwardly, but inwardly. My smile held, my nod was convincing, but in that moment I cut the cord. Whatever love remained evaporated like a gas leak. She thought she was repairing us. I knew I was preparing her funeral, Metaphorically, of course, because prison orange is not my color. That night, while she slept the sleep of someone who mistakes denial for peace, I sat in the glow of my laptop and laid out my plan. Not fists, not shouting, but exposure. Truth as a nuclear option. Americans love spectacle, and what is revenge if not a show with perfect lighting? I pictured it. The reveal, the audience, the gasp. Her world collapsing not with violence, but with undeniable evidence played louder than her excuses. My revenge wasn't going to be messy. It was going to be art. And that's when the pain turned. Rage stopped being chaos and became fuel. Every betrayal, every lie, every gaslit conversation was now a brick in the architecture of justice I was designing. My family name wasn't going to be the punchline in her love affair with a dumbbell salesman. I was going to rewrite the script. She thought she had the upper hand, but she forgot the oldest American truth. We don't forgive betrayal. We monetize it. So I kissed her forehead goodnight, whispered, "I love you," like a pro, and went back to staring at the ceiling fan, spinning silently above a husband who no longer existed. What remained was colder, calmer, sharper. Not a victim, not a fool. A man waiting for the right scene to drop the curtain. Revenge, when it's pure, doesn't come with explosions. It comes with spreadsheets. That's the American way. You think corporations topple families with screaming? No, they do it with paperwork, with signatures in 12-point Times New Roman. So while my wife slept, I drafted my own hostile takeover. No more sloppy emotional outbursts, no more raw heartbreak monologues. From now on, I was the CEO of Betrayal, and the mission statement was simple: shatter her world without breaking a sweat. I started small. Observation. I became the NSA of my own marriage. Every ping on her phone was a classified document. Every late gym night was a military exercise I tracked with precision. Her trainer posted motivational quotes on Instagram, screenshotted. Her Uber receipts showed suspicious drop-offs near a smoothie bar, archived. She laughed too loudly at a text, logged like evidence in a trial. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was an archivist of infidelity, a museum curator preserving every artifact of her toxic love affair so future generations could visit the Hall of Betrayal and say, "Wow, this is where Dad lost his mind, but gained his freedom." The conspiracy mindset deepened. I began to see my entire suburban block as a chessboard. Who knew what? Who suspected? Was the neighbor's dog really barking at raccoons, or was it signaling me that the trainer's truck was nearby? Did the PTA meeting's new yoga fundraiser come from her influence? Every detail was a thread, and I was Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, building a wall of strings and pushpins that spelled out one undeniable truth. My wife's infidelity was not an accident. It was an operation. And operations get exposed. She kept up the act. Sweetness in public, penance in private, dinner table redemption arcs that would win Emmys if Betrayal had its own award show. She thought she was safe because I wasn't yelling, because my family man mask stayed perfectly glued on. She didn't know silence was the sound of the guillotine being wheeled into position. I tested her sometimes, just to taste the absurdity. I'd mention the trainer casually, like, "Didn't he post something about balance today?" and watch her pupils dilate like a suspect in an FBI sting. I'd fake ignorance about gym terminology just to hear her stumble through over-explaining, tripping on the lies. Her paranoia began to grow, and that was the appetizer. The main course was still simmering, but already the smell of her fear was delicious. My plan crystallized one night while watching a rerun of some reality show where cheaters get exposed on hidden cameras in front of a live audience. The crowd gasped, the host smirked, the cheater cried, and I thought, yes, that's it. America doesn't believe in private justice. We believe in spectacle. Justice must trend. It must be loud, undeniable, lit in 4K with surround sound. So that was the blueprint. Gather, stage, reveal. Family, friends, community, every single person she wanted to fool would be in the audience when I premiered her greatest hits compilation of Betrayal. She'd curated the footage with her own stupidity. I'd just be the distributor. Call it Infidelity, the director's cut. Of course, execution required patience. I smiled when she told me she was healing. I kissed her cheek when she said we were getting better. Oh, I let her drag me to brunches, BBQs, family dinners, all the while planting seeds. Little jokes about loyalty, small remarks about honesty, just enough to make her sweat while everyone else laughed. She thought she was escaping. In reality, she was walking willingly toward the stage. In the meantime, I practiced. The reveal had to be perfect. No yelling, no chaos, just surgical precision. I imagined it like a courtroom. I'd stand, speak calmly, and deliver exhibits A through Z. Texts, photos, receipts, maybe even a slideshow with transitions so smooth the audience would forget this was real life and not a TED Talk on betrayal. And at the end, when the evidence was overwhelming, I'd simply step back and let silence do the work. Nothing crushes the American ego like exposure. Her face would collapse. Her reputation would implode. Her toxic love affair would shrivel in the daylight. But here's the part that thrilled me most. She had no clue. She thought she had won, that I was too broken, too loyal to family, too shackled by history to ever move beyond her manipulation. She thought I'd forgive, rebuild, keep the facade. That was her fatal miscalculation. Forgiveness wasn't my style anymore. Revenge was. And betrayal is never forgiven, only monetized, dramatized, weaponized. One night as she slept, her phone buzzed again. I picked it up, watched the notifications roll in. Heart emojis. Inside jokes. Can't wait to see you again. Proof layered on proof. I didn't delete, didn't reply. I simply forwarded everything to myself and tucked it away like a magician hiding aces up his sleeve. She'd never know the deck was stacked until I laid it all down. By then, I wasn't even angry anymore. Anger had been burned away, leaving something colder, sharper. This wasn't about emotion. This was about engineering. Infidelity had turned me into an architect of truth. She thought she was the star of some sexy little side romance. In reality, she was just a character in my production, and opening night was coming. So I kissed her goodnight again, let her believe in her redemption arc, let her think she was safe. She didn't know the walls were already built, the lights already hung, the audience already gathering in my mind. Betrayal had made me patient, and patience had made me dangerous, because revenge isn't loud, it's silent. And silence, when it finally breaks, sounds like the world shattering. It was almost poetic that the setting for my grand finale wasn't a courtroom or a TV studio, but a good old-fashioned American family dinner. You know the type. Casserole sweating in Pyrex, kids screaming in the background like unpaid extras, relatives arguing about politics as if the turkey stuffing held the Constitution inside it. This was the battlefield I chose. Why? Because betrayal doesn't just destroy marriages, it thrives on silence. And silence dies in public. I had spent weeks curating my arsenal. Screenshots formatted like museum exhibits. Uber receipts highlighted like a crime novel. Even a short video clip, the kind of grainy live photo that, when slowed down, looked like evidence from a low-budget FBI sting. I arranged everything neatly in a folder on my iPad, ready to airplay to the TV like a suburban Scarface with Wi-Fi. Call it PowerPoint revenge. If Steve Jobs had survived to watch this presentation, he would have wept tears of betrayal himself. She was glowing that night, basking in the illusion that her manipulation had worked. She poured wine for my mother, complimented my cousin's new baby, even touched my arm like we were a couple on the road to healing. I smiled, matching her beat for beat, like a dance choreographed by betrayal itself. Every guest around that table represented the family she wanted to keep under her thumb. Friends, siblings, neighbors, they were all here, hungry not just for food, but for gossip, for drama, for the kind of American entertainment you can't stream on Netflix. I let the dinner progress. I laughed at jokes, complimented dishes, played the part of the husband who was working through it, and then, like a maestro raising his baton, I tapped my glass. The room fell silent. Forks froze. Eyes turned. My wife beamed, assuming I was about to deliver a sentimental toast about family, resilience, forgiveness. Poor woman. She had no idea she was seconds away from her world shattering in high definition. I started gently, like every great exposé. I talked about trust, about betrayal, about how sometimes the people closest to us carry secrets that rot the family tree from the inside. Her face twitched, the faintest flicker, like a building realizing too late that its foundations have already cracked. "And so tonight," I said, voice calm, steady, "I think it's time to honor transparency." I unlocked my iPad, and with one tap, the TV behind me lit up like Judgment Day. There it was, the texts projected bigger than life. "Great session today. Can't wait for the next workout." Gasps ricocheted across the table like popcorn in the microwave. I swiped a screenshot of a payment she sent him, labeled innocently groceries. Laughter rippled, cruel, disbelieving. I swiped again. A live photo of them in our bedroom, his hand on her back, her smile, the smile of infidelity itself. This wasn't reality TV. It was better. It was live theater, and the audience was ravenous. My wife's face drained of color, then flushed red, then drained again, like a malfunctioning traffic light. She stammered, denials, excuses, the same script she'd rehearsed with me. But excuses that barely worked in private collapsed in public. My mother put down her fork like she'd just watched a crime. My cousin whispered, "Oh my God," like a mantra. One aunt crossed herself as if betrayal required divine intervention. And then came the trainer. Yes, the man himself, because irony is America's favorite plot twist. He arrived late, probably expecting dessert and polite conversation. Instead, he walked into a courtroom. His face appeared on the TV mid-text when the slideshow flipped, and the timing was so divine I almost believed in God again. Gasps erupted. Someone clapped. He froze in the doorway like a deer on the interstate, caught not just by headlights, but by a freight train of truth. "You said you loved me," my wife hissed at him, forgetting the audience, forgetting dignity, forgetting that betrayal always thinks it can survive daylight. He stammered something about professional support, which drew laughter so sharp it cut deeper than any insult. The room split instantly, half in shock, half in judgment. Friends muttered, relatives shook their heads. The word infidelity hung in the air like smoke after a fire. The family dinner became a tribunal, and I was both prosecutor and executioner. I didn't scream, I didn't gloat. I simply closed the slideshow, set the iPad down, and said, "This is who she really is. This is what betrayal looks like. And this," I gestured around the room, "is why I'm done." Silence, then chaos. She begged, hands clutching mine, mascara streaking like war paint. "Please, it's not what it looks like." The same line she'd said the first day, now a tragic punchline. The trainer bolted, his legacy sealed as the villain in my family's oral history for decades to come. My wife collapsed into sobs, but the tears weren't about love. They were about exposure. Toxic love feeds in darkness. In daylight, it shrivels. And me? I felt lighter. Revenge wasn't fireworks. It was clarity. Betrayal hadn't just hurt me, it had educated me. My family saw the truth, my community saw the mask ripped off, and for the first time in months, I was free. That night, I didn't drive her home. I left her there, shattered, surrounded by the wreckage of her own lies. Because the one thing infidelity fears most isn't rage, it's the truth told out loud with an audience. And I had given her the one gift she couldn't return, the end of her performance. Her world was in pieces. My revenge was complete. And the silence in my car as I drove away felt like victory. The morning after the reveal, the house felt like a crime scene without police tape. She shuffled through the kitchen like a ghost, mascara still tattooed under her eyes from last night's meltdown, wearing one of my old sweatshirts like it was armor against judgment. But the sweatshirt didn't save her. Nothing could. Infidelity has no cure once it's public. It's not a secret anymore. It's a headline. Every phone in that dining room had screen-recorded my slideshow. By dawn, the group chats were alive, the family threads lit like Vegas, and I didn't even have to spread the gospel of betrayal. She did it herself by existing in everyone's memories as the wife who cheated with the gym trainer. She tried, of course. Americans always try for redemption arcs. She suggested therapy, retreats, rebuilding trust. She cried in rehearsed crescendos, promising new beginnings, swearing the family didn't have to fall apart. But what she didn't understand was that the family had already fallen apart the moment she handed the keys to our marriage to a guy who thought leg day counted as a personality. That was the betrayal. That was the infidelity. And no amount of tear-soaked apologies could glue the pieces back together. I filed for divorce like an executive signing off on a merger. Cold, efficient, precise. Lawyers became my new personal trainers, shaping my future instead of my quads. I discovered the catharsis of paperwork. Pages stamped and notarized felt more satisfying than any gym workout. Toxic love was now a legal liability, and I was ready to liquidate. She begged, of course. They always beg. She promised change, loyalty, said it was a mistake. But betrayal isn't a mistake. It's a decision. Cheating isn't an accident. It's a campaign. And forgiveness? Forgiveness is just a subscription to the same pain with auto-renewal. I canceled that subscription. Permanently. The trainer disappeared from her life as quickly as he entered mine, leaving her not with passion, but with silence. He blocked her, ghosted her, probably moved on to the next client who thought squats were intimacy. And she was left alone, staring at the ruins of her reputation, realizing the family she thought would cushion her fall was instead watching from the sidelines with popcorn. Because in America, betrayal is entertainment, and her collapse was the season finale no one wanted to miss. Meanwhile, I discovered something strange. Freedom doesn't roar, it whispers. It whispered when I packed my clothes, when I signed the lease for a small apartment with no ghosts in the walls, when I poured my first solo glass of bourbon and toasted myself, not us. It whispered when I sat in silence without the background noise of lies. It whispered that revenge had already done its job, and now life was mine again. But freedom also laughs. I laughed at how blind I'd been, how easily she'd sold the fantasy of family while rehearsing betrayal in secret. I laughed at how the gym trainer thought he'd be the hero of some suburban love story, but ended up as a meme in my cousin's group chat. I laughed at how Americans like me turned personal tragedies into entertainment, how even my coworkers, who couldn't remember my birthday, suddenly sent me supportive texts after the reveal like they'd been invested all along. Betrayal is currency, and I had cashed in. Do I miss her? Sometimes, but not her, the version I thought she was. The woman who danced with me barefoot in the kitchen, who whispered about kids' names, who promised loyalty under an arch of flowers. That version died the moment I opened the bedroom door and saw betrayal sprawled across my sheets. What remained wasn't my wife. It was an actress caught mid-scene, stripped of her script. Infidelity had hollowed her out, and toxic love filled the cavity. So I moved on. New routines, new hobbies, new laughter. I told my story sometimes, at bars, at dinners, once even at a conference when the topic was resilience. People gasped, laughed, shook their heads. I had become living proof that revenge, done properly, isn't destructive. It's clarifying. It's the art of holding a mirror to betrayal and saying, look, this is who you are, and this is why I'm gone. And the reflection? It taught me that trust is the most fragile currency in a family. Once it's counterfeited, the economy collapses. But collapse isn't the end. It's the beginning of reconstruction. My life wasn't ruined. It was remodeled. I traded betrayal for truth, infidelity for freedom, toxic love for solitude that tasted like peace. The last time I saw her, months later, she looked smaller somehow, like betrayal had shrunk her down to the size of her own regret. She asked if I hated her. I told her no. Hate requires energy, and she wasn't worth the calories. What I felt was colder. Nothing. Because once betrayal has burned through you, the ashes don't ache anymore. They just remind you of the fire you survived. And so the story ends not with me broken, but with her shattered. My revenge wasn't rage, it wasn't violence, it was truth. And truth, once spoken, never goes back in the bottle. Her world was destroyed, mine was reborn. That's not tragedy, that's not comedy. That's American life. Betrayal, spectacle, collapse, and finally, freedom.